Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. The Dogman canine variant type 2, I believe, is the most terrifying Dogman out there. Yet, there is another canine cryptid that is out there that resembles this type of Dogman so closely. I believe they are one and the same. I've got a couple of encounters I'd like to share with you, and then I'd like to get your view on my hypothesis. So, before we get into these encounters, a couple of links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't really fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give them a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page to help raise some money for urbex, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting equipment. So far, I have an SLS cam, an EVP recorder, and some trail cams. That link is also in the description. Now I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with these encounters, shall we? Today's first encounter brings us to Van Buren County, Iowa, July 2nd, 2015. It was about 10 at night. Ty and myself, we saw what we thought was a coyote coming out of the brush across from the field from us. It had raised its head high and watched us before going back in. It then reappeared in the lower part of the field, and we thought it was definitely a coyote by the way it was trotting. It kept coming towards us and didn't seem to have any fear of us. We hurried down along the edge of the field to get a closer look. We got a couple 100 yards away with our spotlights on it the whole time and could see it was a very large canine. It sometimes raised its head high to look at us, maybe 3 or 4 times. It had pointed ears and a grayish tan fur. I'm guessing it stood at least 4 feet or so high at the head. Ty thought it was standing on its hind legs, but I just think it raised its head. As it kept coming closer, we noticed it wasn't alone, as we saw another set of eyes, which we took as a juvenile. What was even stranger, when it then turned to leave, it crawled across the field on its belly and seemed to have changed its appearance. It appeared to have a very long and very dark gray or blackish in color as it crawled away. Ty and I looked over at each other and said, "Did you just see that?" We both said, "What was that?" When we saw it again, it raised its head high to watch us, then disappeared into the brush where we first saw it. Again, we saw the juvenile. After that, we went squatching down the road, and we heard a strange, high-pitched whining that kept on for about 15 minutes before moving away, and then becoming quiet. We heard something walking in the woods as the sound got louder. It wasn't a coyote or a fox or an owl. I've never heard this sound down there before. After going back to our tent, we started to hear what sounded like a hyena laughing almost all night. It woke me up early the next morning. I remember hearing this before, years ago, in the same location. I didn't find any footprints because the soil was getting very dry. We believe it may have been a Shunka Warakin, a large hyena-like canine that had been reported in Iowa and other Midwest states. This creature did seem to have a longish neck and long legs. We don't believe it was a wolf, which has been spotted in the county. Coy dogs are frequently seen, and I think they look much like a hyena with longer forelimbs than back and are the size of a German Shepherd or a small wolf. But I don't believe that is what we saw. We saw 2 coyotes the following night crossing the field, and there was no comparison. They took off as soon as they saw us, unlike this creature. There must be several of these creatures and must be breeding according to the juvenile that was with it. We now have several trail cams set up, and hopefully we can get film of this creature. For today's second encounter, we're going to stay in Van Buren County, Iowa, December 9th through the 12th, 2015. Around 10 at night, Ty and I were squatching down by the river, and We came back about 2 hours later. We heard something big take off real close, scaring both of us, but we didn't see anything. Right after that, we heard a scream on the other side of the river, and I shined a spotlight. We saw a creature which appeared to be a very large canine type. We watched it for a while as it walked along the trees. It seemed to have very large green eyes. We went down the river to get a closer look and watched it, then we lost track of it. As I was scanning back and forth, it reappeared. Ty thought she saw red eyes and reddish-brown fur on its head, and that it stood up. Then my spotlight started to act up and we lost track of the creature. We described the vocalizations as high-pitched, whining screams resembling a hyena but much higher, or a human baby crying. We heard it twice that night. It sounded very similar to what we heard back in July. I'm very familiar with the local wildlife, and I can guarantee that it was not a coyote, wolf, or mountain lion. I've never heard anything like this around here before. Whatever it was brought a chill through my body. Ty and I went over the next morning to investigate. We discovered large piles of deer carcass along the river from the local hunters. It may have been feeding on them, but we found no footprints. However, we did find an impression of a huge print on the side of the gravel road which appeared to have 3 toes and was 7 inches wide, bigger than any wolf print I'd ever seen. That night we heard it again as we were squatching, but further down the river. I saw the creature again and the red eye shine this time, but the red eye shine may have been from the angle of its head. Then it disappeared. On the 3rd night, I walked down the river on the town side, but heard nothing, and Ty walked across the bridge, and as she got to the other side, she heard a scream way down the river. Later that night, we met back up and went more squatching, where we saw the creature, and sat at a gunfiring range and listened for a couple of hours. We did get some Bigfoot activity in the nearby woods and distant vocalizations around 1 in the morning. We also heard a high-pitched scream, which may have been that creature, but it was downriver from us. It started raining, so we headed home. We believe it may have been the same creature we saw back in July. It's certainly a cryptid. Definitely not a known animal. We know it's living along the river in southeast Iowa. Is the Shunka Warakin real? We sure think so. Hopefully, someday we can capture it on film or even audio. It would certainly blow the cryptozoology community away. Today's 3rd encounter is a Scottish version of the Skinwalker. It has some lore with the encounter. I am now 25 and I will start with a family story passed down since my family dates back to the 13th century. Werewolves, or so it was believed. After learning about the American Skinwalker, this makes more sense. During the Celtic era of Scotland, druids and clansmen would kill animals for meat. In this case, 2 brothers in a clan were hunting a wild dog that they had found feasting on a deer. The brothers shot the wolf with arrows from the bows. The wolf was laid flat. The animal bit the first brother to approach who tried to take out an arrow. This brother would later skin and wear the pelt after eating the wolf. He had a new pelt sporn in a coat. After a few days, the brother killed his wife and then his brother. When hunted in the woods, they found him changing into a 2-legged wolf with claws. He then later fled on 4 legs and was huge. The clansmen hunted into the knowledge killed any wolf they had found. This became a rule of the house they were in. This was the story passed down to me when I was older. Before this, I came close to one, or what I now believe to be the curse of sort. That is, relatable to the American Skinwalker, but a ghost, if that makes sense. It got 20 feet up into my room, standing with a shut window. It somehow got in and out without opening it. Around 7 feet tall, hunched over, so it must have been 9 feet tall if it stood straight. It had yellow eyes, not glowing, but lighter than the figure's fur and skin. It just looked into me. I felt like it could see my mind. It just watched me as if it was confused or lost and panting. It had a head of a canine and a wolf body and was muscular with sharp fingers with small nails that were very sharp. Long limbs, its arms were past its knees. This was in Motherwell, to be specific, North Motherwell, 2 streets from Strathside. I've only told a handful of people this story, and my parents. I was told about the werewolf story from my grandmother when I was older. To be exact, or as close as I can, I was 6 when this happened. Around 13 when I opened up to why I was afraid of the dark. I'm now 25 and have only come across skinwalker stories, and these make more sense, as I know this isn't a Scottish thing, but a curse, as if the wolf itself put it on the brother and his coat upon the last breath. I believe it's something else, but somewhere between a skinwalker and a werewolf. Today's 4th encounter. I have this quick little story to tell you. I don't know if anybody will care because nobody believes me anyway. So I live in a really small village, the kind that you just blink and you're through. I live down the road from a cemetery and my house is between that and a farm. Between us is a small forest, and there's boar and other animals that cross my garden and go in my front yard. I have 6 dogs, so I usually know when they do. Anyway, sorry for the details, I'm just setting the stage. In my front yard there's a spotlight, and it goes on and off. Weirdly, at those times my dogs go nuts. A few nights ago there was a noise in the forest, and it sounded half animal, half human, like a dog crying or a baby. That's not the first noise I've heard. I've heard women-like screams, which blame on the animals in the forest. This noise I've never heard, though, and quickly gave me the shivers. Another detail is I was outside with my boyfriend at the time. So, after the noise, all my dogs go nuts, and I turn to my front yard and get a glimpse of this human-sized animal running on all 4s. I couldn't make out a face because it was running so fast and the lights went out. I know it sounds crazy, but it was so huge, and it had really long brown hair. No, it's not a dog or a baby cow. I don't want to sound crazy, but it kind of looked like Chewbacca, running on all 4s, but with much longer hair. I don't know what it was, but it scared the hell out of me. 4 amazing encounters. The last one, I'm going out on a limb, and I'm going to call Sasquatch. I have not done a lot of research on Bigfoot, even though I live in upstate New York, and it is definitely Bigfoot country where I live. We have sightings in our local paper all of the time. I've been informed by you guys that they do travel on 4 legs. So I'm calling Bigfoot on that one. The 3rd encounter, just an amazing encounter, that one. The lore that they shared with us. You know, you always hear these people saying, I saw a skinwalker, and then you always get the comments back, were you in Navajo country? And they say, no, I wasn't. Well, a lot of cultures have a skinwalker typed creature. The Zuni have their own version of a skinwalker, which I have a couple of encounters to share with you coming up. And, you know, just the Philippines. So, you know, everybody gets so irate in their panties in a bunch when someone in a different state other than the Southwest say, I saw a skinwalker. No, you didn't. Well, that's the only term that these people can express what they saw. Scary as hell. Just that word, skinwalker. Ugh. But just an amazing encounter, you know, with the lore. And I got a couple of Scottish subscribers, and I'm gonna get a hold of them tomorrow and ask them what they thought of this encounter and what they know about the Scottish version of a skinwalker. Not a skinwalker, but a Scottish version of. And the first two encounters, the Shunka Warakin or the Type 2 Dogman. I think it was a Type 2 Dogman. Was saw standing twice, and canines do that. Yeah, they do, but not regularly. And I know some people have, oh, my dog stands on its back legs all the time. Great, but most don't all the time. So that's I'm saying Dogman on that. The Shunka Warakin is definitely a terrifying cryptid. A hyena-like canine cryptid creature in America. I mean, come on, guys. The hyena is just scary as hell anyway. And Shunka Warakin means the carrier off of dogs, because apparently this creature from the indigenous tribes would come and take these people's dogs out of their encampments, and they named it something. So who's to say it wasn't a hyena-like Dogman running on all fours, grabbing a quick meal and out of there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed these encounters. I'm going to do a little more research on the Shunka Warakin and possibly do an upload just on that. And with that, guys, I bid you farewell.